This is a public
Good morning.
service.
My name is Mike Taylor. I'm an investigator with the State Attorney's Office. Today's date is June the 14th, 2023. It's approximately 9:51 a.m. Present with me on this recorded Zoom interview is Commissioner Dana McCool and her attorney. I'm sorry, sir, I don't have your name.
Robert Doan, D-O-A-N.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McCool, do you have your driver's license with you?
I do.
Could you show it to the camera as close as you can? I can zoom into it later. Just want to be able to confirm for the record who I'm talking with.
Sure.
Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with me this morning for this interview. I appreciate your help with this. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. The purpose of our interview, as I briefly shared with you over the telephone, is that our office received a complaint or information alleging that during a recent interview process to replace or hire a city manager for the City of Deltona, that at least 2 or more commissioners may have had a private meeting in their home during which one of the candidates to potentially become the city manager was present. And the information we received was that you may have walked in on this meeting. So I apologize that your name has come up. I appreciate your willingness to speak with me this morning, but my questions will be pertaining to this alleged meeting and what you may or may not know about it. So you are currently a city commissioner with the City of Deltona, correct?
Yes.
When were you first elected?
November 3 years ago. This November will be 3 years that I've been in office. So,
okay.
What is that? 2020. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Is this the first time that you've been elected to public office?
Yes.
Okay. When you were elected, did the city send everyone to any type of ethics training or sunshine law training, anything like that?
Yes.
And do they do that with all of the commissioners as they're elected to their positions?
As far as I understand, yes.
Okay. All right. Specifically related to this, let's see if I've got the name here real quick, because, okay, specifically regarding the process for hiring a city manager, was this a renewal contract with the current manager? Was there a problem with the current manager? Did the city not know if they were going to retain the current manager and they were seeking a new manager? Or is the manager that you have now an applicant that went through the process? And I'm sorry, I don't know the history where that's concerned. I'm curious how that all may come into play.
All right, we were at the time of this seeking a permanent city manager, and the current city manager was on the list of applicants for the position of city manager, along with maybe 7 others, I believe.
Okay, so the current city manager was not the manager at the time of this process?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And the current city manager's name is?
Jim Chisholm. Chisholm.
Got it. All right. During the process of soliciting applications, like I shared, the allegation we received was that there were 2 or more commissioners that may have had a private meeting with one of the applicants. the way the information was presented to me, and I welcome you to correct anything that may or may not be correct in what I'll present. So what I'm going to present to you is what I was told, not anything that I necessarily believe or that I'm representing as fact. What I was told is that you and at least one other person had collected some money as a result of a charitable fundraiser, and that you had gone or traveled to one of the commissioners' homes to deliver the funds. And when you arrived, you saw that there were 2 commissioners present and one of the applicants for the position of manager, city manager. Now, you feel free to correct any of that information that either the person who told me may have misunderstood or that I may misunderstand. I'm just trying to gather the information to see, okay, how did all of this come about? And I also want to make sure that we're talking about the exact circumstance as best we can, because I don't know if there were more than one occasion where there were meetings that were held or not, which will be one of my follow-up questions. But I'm trying to make sure at least I lay enough foundation so that as I ask you specific to the allegations I was given, you can kind of identify, okay, that's the incident that he's talking about.
Okay. We as commissioners oftentimes collect monies for a charity. We have charities that do food drives. The one that I'm thinking of does a food drive and can't afford to have a deputy sheriff present, and so we collect money as commissioners. And it might have been the reason I was over there. I was pointedly asked by Commissioner Jody Lee to come by his house, and I believe that the point was to get money from him to go towards one of these types of collections that we were doing.
Okay.
Right? If pressed, I am not 100% sure. I am, however, 100% sure that he asked me to stop by before a meeting, and I said, okay. Right. On this day in question, I stopped by his house, walked into his house, went to the back porch, recognized the other commissioner, Stephen Colwell, who is also of record his best friend. And I saw another gentleman sitting there that I did not recognize. The gentleman was subsequently introduced to me as the applicant, one of the applicants for the city manager job, and a conversation began. And as the conversation went on for about 5 minutes, I made sure to hear what I was hearing. And the gentleman was, I believe, presenting himself as he wanted to an audience, right, to have himself chosen as the next city manager. And at that time, I just distinctly remember that he was not one of my choices. I didn't care enough about his presentation initially at the city meeting, right, to investigate him any further. I did not remember what he looked like at the time when I saw him sitting there until he was introduced. And after about 5, 6, at the top 10 minutes into the conversation, I looked at the gentleman and I said, we're not doing this. This could be misconstrued as a meeting. Fuck this is what I said. And I'm just telling you succinctly what I said. And exchanged pleasantries for 5 more minutes maybe, and then exited the premises.
Okay. Can you tell me now, if I understood correctly, this was subsequent to him making a presentation before the full city commission in a public forum. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you remember approximately how much after the public meeting, this private meeting took place?
Definitely after 3 or 4 days, but before 2 weeks. It was within a 2-week period.
Okay. So if I was trying to narrow down the time frame, it would be sometime within the 2 weeks following that public meeting.
Yes.
Okay. You said that you had stayed long enough to hear what you thought you heard. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Do you remember anything specific with regards to anything either of the commissioners said? And I realize that as I ask you this very direct question, it puts you in a predicament, but this is the crux of what I'm trying to determine. So do you remember anything specific about things that were said or asked by either Commissioner Lee or Caldwell or the applicant?
No, I just remember, I remember the feeling. You know, you don't remember the words sometimes, but you remember the feeling. I felt it was a pitch, and I didn't feel like it was the appropriate place for that audience. And there again, I said, we are not doing this. This could be misconstrued, and I wrapped up the conversation. I remember that I told him, you can talk about something else, but then I excused myself within, again, 10 minutes of me feeling like that was not the appropriate situation to be sitting in.
Okay. Do you have any idea who organized that meeting?
I did not. Will tell you this in complete transparency. The gentleman was in town from Ohio. He asked me, nay, begged me to meet with him the next day. I met with him in private. I remember distinctly I did not even get through lunch because, again, he was not on my short list at all for city manager. I didn't spend that much time with him. I just felt like he was not the right person for the job, and so I did not give any credence really to his presentation.
Okay. Do you know who paid for his travel?
I do not.
Subsequent to the meeting, whether it was the meeting where you saw the two commissioners at Commissioner Lee's residence or after the private meeting you had with this particular candidate, did either of the commissioners ever say anything to you about what had happened? Did they try to explain themselves?
No. No.
The pop-up on the screen is one of our investigators, Investigator Turner from Daytona, who's working with me on this investigation. He had some connectivity issues trying to get logged on. Jim, are you with us?
Jim, if you can hear, you're muted.
I'm going to shoot him a quick text message so that he can. Okay, I just shot him a message to turn his video on and to unmute. All right, Commissioner, do you remember the name of this candidate for city manager?
I do not.
That's all right.
I do not. Again, I told you I didn't care enough about his presentation to make him memorable to myself.
Okay, all right. I ask you this in a very general sense, but I do want to be specific in this. When you heard the words that you heard that made you feel like he was making a pitch, was there anything that was said that made you believe that anyone was involved with anything more inappropriate other than just the potential of having a private meeting that had not been disclosed? And you know, where I'm specifically going is I mean, generally,
I'm not laughing out of disrespect. I'm laughing because it's just not plausible. I'm sure I know where you're headed, but I don't think that our people are, and when I don't know, I don't think our people are smart enough for that. I'm just sorry, but.
No, and I don't take the laugh as any form of disrespect. It's a question that if I don't ask, then someone later doing a public records request to look at this investigation may wonder, how come you didn't even ask the question? You know, I mean,
I understand.
Whether there was a promise or an offer of some type of reward or compensation or something, by the candidate towards the commissioners or the commissioners towards the candidate, whether there was some offering of reimbursement for travel or covering the payment, the expenses or things like that. I mean, if anything like that occurred, then it's appropriate that we look at it and determine was it or was it not appropriate. If I never ask the question, then we never get there. So if you're not aware,
diligent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not offended that at the smile. I totally get it. All right.
Okay.
So who was, or I say who was there anyone with you whenever you arrived at Commissioner Lee's home?
No.
Okay. No one in the vehicle with you when you arrived? Okay.
No.
Have you discussed this with anyone? When you came out of the meeting and you saw what you saw that made you feel concerned, did you share any concerns or what you had observed with anyone?
No, not until much later on, and I discussed with the city attorney and subsequently the city manager and the deputy city manager also.
All right. And this would be the new city manager that was hired or selected by the commission?
Yes.
And who is the city attorney?
Marcia Segal George.
And the current city manager is Mr. Chisholm?
Correct.
And who's the deputy city manager?
Rick Carl. RICKKARL.
And when you shared with them what had occurred, did any of them have any specific advice?
No.
Okay. Given your understanding of the Florida Sunshine Law, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I know what my impression is from what you've shared with me, that there was at least a level of discomfort. So given your understanding of the Florida Sunshine Law, did it concern you that the activity with two commissioners meeting with this candidate to discuss privately his potential employment with the city was a violation of the Sunshine Law? Is that why you felt uncomfortable and felt like you should leave?
If it wasn't completely, it was broaching the vicinity of that. Okay. And that is the way that I felt. And before I would say, I need to talk to my attorney for a second. Okay.
Sure. You can mute it.
Thank you for that. And I wanted to clarify and be as succinct as possible for you that, again, I reiterate that it was broaching the area that made me feel uncomfortable and broaching the area of having plausible deniability because of the ethics that I feel that I try to maintain in my office. So sure. I can't tell. I believe it's subjective to anyone else, right? But as for me, I just removed myself before I had any more doubt or question.
Okay, I understand. And just so that you kind of feel maybe a little more at ease, the reason I asked that question was the whole purpose for this inquiry, if you will, is to determine whether or not there was a violation of the Sunshine Law. There are a lot of things that might make people feel uncomfortable in a meeting. Maybe I just didn't like the guy, or maybe I didn't like the negotiations, versus an impression that this may or may not be, or like, as you said, if it's not a violation, it's so close that it makes me feel uncomfortable. I shouldn't be there. I get it. And
I believe that as we've discussed, that the confluence of everything put together, first of all, I didn't really, the guy wasn't on my short list, so I wasn't interested, right? And second of all, the approach of the conversation was, again, I'm not risking my name to even hear this out. You know what I mean?
sure. Okay. Were there any other candidates that you're aware of that had private meetings with? If they had private meetings with one commissioner, then that's not a matter that I'm concerned with, if you will. But were there any other meetings with other candidates with two or more commissioners that you're aware of that were not publicly noticed?
No, I'm not aware of that. And complete transparency, the only other candidate that I had conversation was via phone call, and that was with Al Childress, who remained on everyone's short list. He was the only candidate that made it to every single commissioner and the mayor's list, right? However, he wasn't chosen over the current city manager that was chosen. So he is the only one that I spoke with. I may have in fleeting, though, spoken to a couple briefly to say thank you for presenting. They were very short presentations. They were like 3 minutes per candidate that they got. It was ridiculously short. So that is the only one by name because I was impressed with Al Childress. I reached out to him. I encouraged him, even after the fact he wasn't chosen, to please be a candidate again for our long-term, because this position was for interim. It wasn't even for a permanent city manager. It was for an interim city manager. So again, I felt a waste of my time. Didn't like the guy, and there you go.
Understood. With the exception of, or in addition to the Commissioner Caldwell and Commissioner Lee, are there any other persons that you believe I should discuss or interview regarding these allegations?
No.
Okay. Commissioner, I thank you for your time this morning. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think might be important for me to know regarding these allegations?
No, sir. I believe I've been true, factual, and as thorough as I can be regarding the matter.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your help this morning. Mr. Doan, thank you
sir.
for accommodating our meeting, and I appreciate your service as a public official. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Taylor.
Have a great day, ma'am.
You too. Bye-bye.
We're out here today to ensure our natural rights are respected by those who swore an oath to support, protect, and defend the rights of the people. The purpose of all interactions is to peacefully promote government accountability and transparency. Please like, share, and subscribe so this message can reach as many people as possible. I implore you to peacefully seek redress to any and all of your grievances. This is a public service.